Welcome to another edition of the Dr. Marketing Tip Show. I'm one of your hosts, Corey, and today we're sharing a special presentation from co-host Jennifer Thompson that she recently gave to a group of practice administrators. So this webinar was titled Harnessing the Power of Social Media, Trends, Tactics, and Responsible Use. And honestly, the opening story alone is worth the listen. It is terrifying and also inspiring in some ways in equal parts. So yeah, Jen shares this story about a client who woke up to let's call it a dumpster fire on social that led to lots of threats, hundreds of angry phone calls, some online review bombing. It really highlights why social listening is no longer optional for medical practices and why it's something you should be paying attention to. But in this webinar, she also talks about crisis management, and this episode is really packed with some actionable insights, including a massive shift in patient behavior and how social media has stopped being a broadcast channel and has really become a search engine for a lot of patients. And we also talk about content pillars, which is kind of organize ideas so you aren't burning out trying to post every single day. And she shares a little bit about the truth around AI and how to use it to speed up your workflow without violating HIPAA. So if you have been wondering where to focus some of your energy specifically around social, this is the episode for you. So without further ado, take it away, Jen.
I'm going to talk about harnessing the power of social media in healthcare, some trends to pay attention to, some tactics, and some responsible use, which is something we're all starting to really pay even more attention to now. So let me just see. All right. So basically, I want to start this whole thing with really, I want to show you kind of the power of social media. Specifically, I want to give you a case study of something that recently happened to my team. Basically, social media is an extremely powerful tool, whether it's for patients or providers alike. So I'd like to start off with a case study that really highlights the power and the influence social media has beyond even just like the positives, because I think for us to understand the negatives can help us all learn on how we might harness this thing called social media to work for our practices across the board. So basically, this is a case study, and this is a slide I took directly out of a physician presentation, but the little meme there is kind of fun, but at the same time, it's the reality. Like, we dealt with something that basically happened at 2:00 in the morning. I was over on the West Coast and this client's on the East Coast, and I got a call by 4 a.m. from the CEO of this very large practice that said, "Hey, Jen, have you seen what is going on? Are you on top of it?" And, I didn't tell the client that it was only 4 in the morning where I was, but I knew I was several hours away, that I could pick up the phone and call my team and find out what was going on. Basically, in the middle of the night, a video got posted on TikTok, and it was an extremely racially charged video. And somehow that video got linked to this medical practice, saying that the person that was featured in the video was an employee of this practice. That started a snowball effect that we started dealing with that took us really about a week and a half to get all the way through. So what happened is it started on TikTok, and then it got shared over to Facebook, and then it got shared to Instagram, and then it got shared on YouTube. Within 24 hours of this thing, being put out there, the video had reached over 1 million people, and it had over 1 million likes and over 100,000 shares across platforms. The everything in the video was false. Somehow it got tied to an employee. It said this person used to work at the practice, therefore the practice isn't wrong, which then led to a flood of comments, reviews. They took over the Google pages, tags, anything at all, even though there was no factual connection at all related to the practice. So this thing started on TikTok, made its way across the board, and within 24 hours, over 1 million people had interacted with it. That led to also over 300 phone calls the next morning when we came in. They had published on the various channels and in the comments that had published the cell phone of one of the employees that they found online, and he received over 300 phone calls on that very first day. We had hundreds, if not more, of direct messages, whether it was through Instagram or Facebook direct messaging that we had to respond to on a really like in real time. Everything else kind of went to the wayside to deal with this one video on TikTok that was less than 30 seconds. Literally worldwide outcry. We had inquiries from all over the world decrying the practice, saying, do not go to this practice. This practice is are racist, and this practice was wrong in every way. And they were figuring out who worked at the practice and then hitting them on social media as individuals, coming after the CEO, you name it. I jokingly, but not jokingly, also had at the same time a physician who shot and killed his wife. And the shooting and the primetime television did not take on anywhere near as bad as the life of this specific TikTok video that was racially charged. The killing got less press and less pushback than this video was on there. And it lasted us almost an entire week. And this was just all of it kind of showcasing how important social media is and how big that it is. So what's powerful about this example is not just how fast misinformation can spread, but also how quickly we were able to contain it. So what we did immediately, a little bit beyond social, but what we did immediately is we paused all content that was being put out. So all of our social channels had to be taken, I don't want to say offline, but we stopped posting content. We also turned off all of our ads that would be running as well. We wanted to have full control over the messaging and be on top of it. It took us a while, but it took us within the first couple of hours, the CEO put out a very direct announcement that he put on social. And then we were able to, in all of our responding, we were able to reference the announcement and try to really start controlling the narrative. So within a few days, engagement kind of normalized. The false accusations stopped circulating to some degree. We had to, at one point, reach out to Google and have them fix all of our online reviews, because we probably had 50 or so reviews that got left from just random people all over the world, all starting from one social media post. So basically, here's what we did. We took immediate action. We formed a quick committee, paused everything, issued an official statement, and started responding to all the direct messages. We had a very unified response across the board. So we had cross-team coordination to help us get some of the harmful comments and the false reviews removed. We were totally transparent. We think that helped us in building credibility, putting out that official statement on everything. We put it on Facebook, we put it on TikTok, we put it on Instagram, we put it on our Google reviews, you name it. And really, it just was a matter of kind of controlling the misinformation, keeping track of it, and making sure that we had the protocols in place. So we can say we were much better prepared for the next crisis that comes from social media, but this one was a learning experience, to say the least. And then kind of some key takeaways. And I think they're pretty simple, but basically we could not have contained this had we not had a social listening tool in place. Because a social listening tool, sure, it tells you when somebody likes or comments or whatever on your page. But what it really allowed us to do is see when we were being spoken of on other pages and across the interwebs on social media. It allowed us to get our hands around the 10,000 plus comments that were being left by people, so that we could either have those people removed from our pages, or we could respond to them directly and take the conversation offline. So a social listening tool was essential for us being able to manage this kind of thing. You don't realize that you need it until you actually need it, but it was big. Having a crisis plan is necessary. You'll never know what the crisis is, but having a game plan. I had mentioned before, like I was on the West Coast of the US when this came up on the East Coast, But we all knew that on my team, at least, that I was going to step in, and we started calling the appropriate people together, pulling out our crisis plan, making sure that our communication channels were set up, and really being able to explain directly to the physicians and to the CEO of the practice, this is what's going on, here's what's being said, and giving an update every couple of hours in writing so we could track it. It's just crazy how powerful social media was in this situation. And then also being nimble and being fast. Had we not had the authority to move quickly on a lot of these things after we got the statement out, I don't know that we would have been able to get in front of it the way that we did. So, having your crisis team in place and making sure that they're empowered to make necessary decisions so that they can get things done and get things removed was a big takeaway for us. So between that and the social listening tool, you can tackle any kind of crisis that comes up. So you want the positives, but sometimes you want to realize that social media can take on a life of its own, and it's not always all rainbows and sunshine. So the moral of the story, you can ride the social media wave over there on the left, and that's an awesome experience when you have a positive experience. But social media, just like, a nice, beach scene when you're getting on the boogie board or the surfboard, can also become destructive in a hurricane like this one on the right. And it just depends what's going on, because social media takes on a life of its own. It's where people are talking and having conversations, and you can't always control what people are saying. And that's because it's evolved so much over the years. So let's get into why social media actually matters in today's day and age. So when it comes to social is really oftentimes the first touch point for patients. A person may watch a 30-second short form video, maybe about an ear infection or before they're looking to book an appointment. And that video educates the patient and simplifies the explanation, maybe helps them garner engagement and build trust with your practice. And the key of all of this is maintaining the accuracy of the information and offering the sources and making sure we're protecting patient privacy, you name it. So basically, social media is now a primary discovery channel for health information. I was just talking to somebody this morning about this, where we said, back in the day, let's say 10 years ago, when you went on social media, your strategy was build an audience, put stuff out there, and kind of interrupt their feed. Maybe you'll have a bit of conversation here and there. Nowadays, in the last 10 months or so, let's say last couple of years, now social media is a place that you use it like a search engine. So you might go to social and say, ear infections, ENT doctor near me, how do I know if I need hearing aids? And those videos are going to be the ones popping their way to the front of the feed. So whereas before, people would find us because we would show up on their feed, now people are looking for specific answers to questions using social media. It's now more of a search engine than it is just, somewhere you go for entertainment. So patients are searching social media first for ENT conditions, things like hearing loss, tinnitus, sinus issues, ear infections, you name it. And social then becomes the key channel for education, maybe myth busting, awareness, short form videos that make the complex simple, two-way communication where they feel as if they're communicating with the doctor or communicating with someone at the practice, like, can I get an appointment today? Things of that nature. A lot of the juice, the squeeze and the juice, and however that phrase goes, it's in the direct messages. Your ability to know when a message is coming in and respond to it is the difference maker in being passive versus being having an active plan to engage your followers on social. And then, privacy and trustworthiness are super important because patients want reliable sources. So many times we'll be sitting there with some doctors and they'll say, hey, do you think we should hire an influencer to bring, individuals to our practice? And we say, no, doctor, because guess what? You are the biggest influencer out there. And we know for a fact that social is starting to monitor even more and more. So if the doctor is putting their best foot forward and dispelling the myths that are out there or answering the questions that people are actually searching for on social media, you now become that influencer and you're just doing what you need to do or what you do all the time, which is educate your patients. There's no other more visible front door still than social media as it relates to your practice and growing your practice. And it's kind of evolved over the years. I'm gonna take a step back from social media, and I'm gonna talk just a little bit about the evolution of healthcare media, with social being a piece of it. But basically, content has now moved from the push, like, here's my information, I want you to know about it, to more of a conversion. So for ENT practices, this means patient questions on hearing loss or allergy treatments can be addressed in the comments or in the direct messages, while personalized AI recommendations like AI overviews can guide educational content based on your patient needs. So to put that hopefully a little more simple for you, in the past we had one-way broadcasts. So we had TV, you're sitting in your living room and you would absorb the information, or you're driving down the road and you see a billboard, or you're listening to radio. You didn't have a choice. You had to hear the generic message. Currently-ish, we are doing two-way community-driven and interactive communications. This is, sure, we're putting it on social, but I also can reach out to your practice and ask you a question on social media, or I can talk about something in the comments and I expect a comment to be back. That's two-way. And the future, which is yesterday, is these personalized AI assisted experiences, which we're seeing more and more of, whether you're asking Siri or Alexa or somebody, one of those devices, or you're using maybe AI as your new browser, or you're getting the snippets off of search. It's all related. So just a little to show you the difference past the billboard. You remember these back when billboards in the hospitals, and then you have a magazine ad, and I think these dollar signs might actually be a video or not. And then present, social media, tired of waiting weeks for an ENT appointment, you can run ads, target the ads around a specific audience in a specific geographic area. And even in social now, you can even schedule appointments and put those plugins with your social channels, tie it to your EHR, and make it seamless from a patient perspective. And then in the future, which is yesterday, it's really this, asking that device that's in your kitchen. I'm afraid to say it out loud because I'm recording this from home, but if I asked her, we know what her name is, where I could find an ENT doctor, she would respond to me and tell me where they are in my neighborhood, where the closest ENT doctor is to me. And the next iteration is that device will be able to connect with scheduling software and start scheduling. Same thing or similar with Google. If I say, and you can see it up here, right in here, if you say, when should I see an ENT? Google is now giving you these AI snippets that are telling you when you should see an ENT, and it will go even a step further. It will pull snippets from your social media channels, because those are also search engines at this point. And no longer does your patient have a need to go to your website, or your practice per se, to figure out when they should see an ENT. They can do it all from these AI snippets. And this is the kind of tech that, 6 months ago, I would have told you, yeah, this is coming. But the reality is it's here. And social media is just as important as your search engine, as is your device, as is your traditional media plan. It's just evolved so tremendously, and it's evolving at light speed. So let's talk about the state of social media today. But basically, social is evolving super quick, right? Even if your clinic doesn't post every day, and that's okay, it is important for you to understand the various platform trends and the regulatory updates so that you can stay compliant and relevant. So here's some recent changes that have been made to social. Platforms emphasize short form content and discovery. This is quick little videos that you can make and edit on your phone, whether these are reels or shorts or TikTok videos, you name it. You see the doctor there on the right. He looks thrilled to be there because somebody in his marketing teams told him, you got to go make these videos, Dr. Baylor, and we got to make it happen. Generative AI tools are mainstream now for ideation and repurposing, but you've got to verify the accuracy of any AI tools that you're using to help you with your social media content. Your regulators have increasingly begun focusing on youth exposure, content origin, and health warnings. Kind of goes back to where I said your doctor is probably the best influencer you've got, because the doctor can dispel any health warnings by, it comes directly from their mouth, and also can produce original content. I think that's a big deal, especially if depends, where you're making content. Is it reaching overseas? Is it just US based? You name it. The rules in Europe are much more stringent than the rules in the US, but we're getting closer and closer to truly having some regulations related to young people having access to social. And then legal and compliance teams really need to update workflows to account for platform and regulatory changes. So you need somebody on your team that's paying attention to the regulatory environment as it relates to social media and your website in general, just to make sure that you stay in compliance. So what is the state of social media right now? Well, to put it simply, short form video drives awareness. So for example, a 30-second how to manage seasonal allergies clip may outperform one of your long old school blog posts. And then AI could help you with the ideation and the repurposing of that content, while social listening will show you what questions patients are actually asking for. So short form video has the highest engagement and ROI, according to HubSpot. Generative AI and social listening are the top trends. That's according to Hootsuite. I go back to social listening. If I didn't have a social listening tool, that nightmare of a dumpster fire would have taken over. But because we had a social listening tool, we were able to keep up with it. Short form video plus AI plus listening, kind of like when you do keyword research from a search engine, listening should form the tactical backbone for your modern social media strategy. And a lot of clinics out there are now prioritizing content that is interactive, shareable, and evidence-based. So the thing about social listening is it allows you to catch the myths early and respond before misinformation spreads. It's a tool that more organizations are finding themselves using on social platforms as a way to better understand their audiences, improve their strategies, maybe spot the crisis like we did, and then monitor what people are saying about them online. Social listening tools are great for you to say, okay, well, there's a lot of chatter about this new hearing aid that came out. Let me get my doctor on a quick, vertical video on my iPhone talking about, the pros and cons of buying a hearing aid at a big box store versus, coming to the practice. So I think it's just really critical that you can use social listening to detect that misinformation, and when the sentiment on within the particular industry or subspecialty within your specialty is starting to shift. You can monitor for local discussions on ENT conditions. Why is my voice hoarse? As I'm going back to, I'm a teacher and my voice is hoarse and I got to go back to school. And this is a way for your team to interject or become part of those conversations. Maybe link them to a blog of here's why your voice might be hoarse. And social listening lets you be proactive. So you can have a proactive response, whether a clinician's reviewing it, maybe you, through the clinician, come up with a corrective post to dispel the myth. And then, maybe you have an opportunity to add some FAQs, whether it's short form video FAQs or quick blog on your website that then you could drive people because you're paying attention to what people are saying. Now you're interactive and you're sending them to your website. This is just so different than it used to be, where we would say, great, I'm going to be on Facebook. Let me grow my audience, to 5,000 people, and then I'll put stuff out there and they'll see it. That is social media of back in the day. Now it's really this it's just these multi conversations and just having to stay on top of it all the time. Just like you would a call center, right? Social media is another opportunity for a call center. Maybe it's not incoming calls. Maybe it's answering questions, things like that. Somebody at your front desk might be doing, or your care teams, or you name it. So let's talk about harnessing the power of social media. So this information right here, interestingly, we change it every year and it doesn't change that much, but the information comes from Statista as of February of this year, talking about the most popular social networks in the world by monthly users in the millions. Facebook is still number one. So if you have less time and less money in 2025 and you're figuring out what your game plan is going to be for 2026, do one or two of these channels really well. Don't worry about all of them. We can't just chase every shiny object. So clearly Facebook is still the place to be, and Instagram is still the place to be. I would argue that if you're an ENT practice and your audience are age 40 up for the most part, which they are, even if you do peds because it's the parent, they're on Facebook and Instagram. TikTok, I'm not going to tell you to get on TikTok because it's a lot of work. It's a great platform, but it's a lot of work and it needs to be driven by the doctor. And YouTube is just a great platform for you. When you're doing video, you should have it on Facebook and Instagram. And you should also include YouTube because YouTube is still the #2 search engine in the world, owned by Google. So let's look at the platforms and the applications for your ENT practice. So each platform has a purpose. Facebook is great for caregiver audiences. It's great for patients of a certain age because, my mother's on Facebook, so I'm on Facebook because I got to see what my mother's doing. TikTok is for a younger audience. I'm going to say younger as in 40 and under, but there's some people in their 50s on TikTok and even above. TikTok's just a hard platform to break into. YouTube is for in-depth education. I'll say that there's a caveat though, because there's YouTube Shorts, which are very similar to Reels and TikTok videos. So if you're doing a quick video and you're posting it on Instagram, you should put it on YouTube Shorts because it'll show up in search. And so you need to pick your platform strategically and focus on consistency, not necessarily volume. So to kind of recap that, Facebook is for your older adults, patient support groups, community education, you name it. Instagram, visual storytelling all day long. Staff introductions, behind the scenes stuff, procedure demos, that does really well on Instagram. TikTok is shorter explainer videos, myth busting, approachable education, specifically for younger audiences. YouTube should be long form education, webinars, and YouTube Shorts for the discovery. Again, because it's certainly a search engine. LinkedIn for staff recruitment, professional thought leadership, clinical research sharing. We do a lot for physician relations and not so much in ENT, but some others in work comp. We use LinkedIn hot and heavy. X, which is formerly known as Twitter, which would be updates in real time. We see a lot of customer service on X. And believe it or not, Pinterest is still out there, which is great for lifestyle tips, things like hearing protection, allergy prevention, wellness habits, you name it. That would make a lot of sense on Pinterest. So let's talk about how we plan our content for social media. So we like to refer to as content pillars. These are the core themes or topics that form the foundation of your social media content strategy. So especially for social blogs or just general marketing campaigns, think in terms of pillars. So think of them as like buckets of content, and you'll consistently create content around these buckets. And this way it helps you stay focused and on message and relevant and strategic. So the most common pillars include educational content, content around that revolves around your company culture, content that helps build trust, which is like your patient testimonials, you name it, promotional content, which are kind of like your ads, but also like we've got same day, next day appointments, come on in, and then content that people might find inspirational. So education, company culture, trust building, your promotional content, and inspirational. And if you stick to those pillars, it's a heck of a lot easier to come up with a content strategy. And that's because they provide structure, right? So when you're working with a pillar, they provide structure. They help you plan and organize your content more easily. You're never figuring out okay, what's going to be next? Because you've got these 5 buckets and you're going to produce something within those buckets. They help you stay consistent. So really, when you're working with a content pillar, you can ensure your messaging stays aligned with your brand's mission. You can improve engagement. You can create content your audience actually finds valuable. And finally, you can support your goals, your overall goals. Each pillar connects to a specific business or marketing objective. And then, from there, you can tie that to your actual objective, which is either build awareness or increase trust or convert them to a patient. But you can start measuring ROI when you start from those content pillars. So these pillars really guide your content calendar. So for example, during Hearing Awareness Month, you might produce educational clips. That would be pillar number 1. You might share some patient stories. That would be pillar number 2 to build trust and engagement. You get the picture. So let's say our content pillars for your ENT practice, might be education and prevention, your first pillar, which is microeducation videos, tips for sinus, ear, and allergy care. The common questions that patients are asking, that's what you're trying to put out there and answer. Then you'd have patient stories and outcomes, which would be, testimonials that patients have agreed to do, and maybe some recovery stories. I love it when we do a recovery story and a patient testimonial, and we tie some words from the doctor together with some words from the patient and then mirror them together. You can create all kinds of things with that. The third would be staff and recruitment content. This is your day in the life videos, your clinic culture highlights, you name them. Then you'd have like community and public health, which would be hearing awareness, allergy season alerts, you name it, like pollen level has reached the red. I don't know what the number is. It's red. This becomes this is the information that you'd put out there. The pollen level today is red. Here's what red means to you. Stay inside. And then clinical innovation, that should be your final content pillar. Your new procedures, your tech updates, maybe even new doctors coming on. That could be staff and recruitment. But you get the picture. You have 5 or 6 different pillars that are holding up the house. And then you produce content that's around these pillars. So the first thing we have to do, though, is we've got to figure out what's the content that we're doing. So we've discussed some of the platforms, their roles, and what the content pillars are. So now it's time to actually figure out what is the content we're going to create. Are we going to share patient stories? Are we going to do it through testimonials? Are we going to do video? Or are we just going to do images? Do we need to educate people? Do we want to do an infographic, or would we rather do a blog and then share it on the blog? You name it. So these are just some specific content types that you might consider. Images are always good, especially if they're real people. Infographics are always awesome because you can have one infographic and make 50 pieces of content out of it. Blogs and articles, they do well when you share them on social. Patient testimonials, I'm a big believer in patient testimonials. We do polls and surveys and quizzes, and you can do them on your website, but you can also do them on social to really increase engagement. You can take patient reviews that you're getting on Google when you have a 4.8 star rating and they say something nice about the staff or about the doctor, turn it into a social post. You can do pictures of staff, the doctors in the community. I like to say, if there's an event and you're going to be at that event and you don't take a photo, it didn't actually happen. Excuse me. We have to have photos so that we can use it on social. And then you have inspiration and motivation and you name it. All right. So then once you kind of know what the content's going to be, then you got to figure out how are you actually going to share it. So now that we've decided what we want to talk about, we got to figure out okay, well, how are we going to do it? So this ties back to the actual platform you're using. If it's Facebook, it's one thing. If it's LinkedIn, it's going to be another thing. So let's say we're sharing a patient story or an outcome. So we have our content pillar. That's great. But now we want to share it in the form of a testimonial. So we have a content piece. Now we got to share it. Well, we need to think about the platforms that we're going to share it on and help us determine how we're going to do it. So on Facebook, it might be photos of the patient, with their story and the caption. But on Instagram or TikTok, you might need to share it as a video. So, think about the content. Maybe it's, 10 signs that you're having an allergy problem, in the spring. Well, are you going to do that through static images? Are you going to use motion? Are you going to have, audio files of the doctor talking about it? Maybe you can get the doctor to do a quick video on your iPhone. Maybe it's a swipe carousel, swipe files where you're on your phone and they can thumb through it and go quick and just get the key points. Carousels, you want to share an article, text-based articles. You want to do fun GIFs and memes. The influencer, which the best influencer is the doctor. So it's one thing to figure out what you're going to talk about, but then you got to figure out what are the best ways to share it. And then once you figure out the best way to share it, you got to share it differently on each of those platforms. So needless to say, it's a lot of work. So using multiple formats actually helps meet these different learning styles for those folks that are out there. Remember, they're using social media now, not just for entertainment, but to get answers to things that matter. So you got to like prepare it for that particular platform. So captions in plain language expand accessibility and they protect you from any miscommunication. Content variety also helps the algorithm favor your profiles. I think this is really important. Content variety gives the algorithm the juice they're looking to make you perform better. So meaning if you have one piece of content and you're sharing it in 5 different ways, you have a much higher opportunity to get the engagement and the reach that you're looking for. Some of the content forms that you need to prioritize, though, are 100% short form video. I'm talking about Reels, TikTok Shorts, YouTube Shorts, you name it. You should be doing short form video, I'm going to say 70% of the time. If a podcast makes sense to you, micro podcast. Even if you think about, I have a podcast maybe that is just talking about company culture and I'm sharing it to my employees. Micro learning is what people want. Micro learning of you explain to me, maybe it's allergies, maybe it's sinuses, maybe it's something else. Carousel post for clinical explainers work really well. Live Q&A, we do a lot of this lately. Bring the doctor in or go to the doctor, do a quick live on Facebook, do the video, answer questions as they're coming in. Remember, social is a 2-way, 3-way, 4-way communication. It's constant. It's like sitting at a dinner table with 20 people and you're having those conversations across the board. And accessibility first content. Make sure you've got captions and alt text and you're doing this in plain language. I share often a story way back in the day when we were just getting started in social and YouTube and you name it. And it used to be really cumbersome to do captions. But we were talking about something related, it was an ENT practice, something related to hearing, and we didn't have the darn captions on. And we had a patient on social media reach out and say, this is great, I wish I could hear to watch the video. And from that, and this is probably 15 years ago, but from that day on, captions went on every single video we've ever produced because people aren't listening to social, they're thumbing through really quick. Which means they don't have the audio on per se. And if you're an ENT and you're putting content out, keep in mind who your patient is, because it really just was a gut check when this patient said, look, I can't hear it. I'd love to hear it, but I can't. So short form video is like the engine of reach. So this is just like a quick example of a video that we took, might have been on a camera, might have been on a camera on the phone, but basically we did a video with a patient and then turn that video into short videos, 15 to 60 seconds each, just to drive engagement. So we could have multiple formats of one video where you do a 15 to 30 second awareness video. You know, hi, I'm Bob. I had this surgery done here, whatever. And then you could turn a 45 to 90 seconds of that same video. You could just clip it to 45, 90 seconds, focusing on a piece of micro education. And then you could take the 2 to 10 minute video, the long form one, turn that on YouTube as the full explanation to what the patient's talking about. So what we love about it is you can repurpose it. So you do one interview with one patient or a doctor, and then you clip it to turn it into clips for Reels or TikToks or Shorts or you name it. And so the example is, 30-second clip on earwax removal myths, but then you do a 60-second on sinus irrigation. And so one video, get your doctor one time answering questions, use that video in multiple forms. One sitting with the doctor turns into something that pays dividends. So, you could take it and repurpose it. Maybe you have just patient testimonials and you're calling that a podcast. I don't know. You could use the full episode on YouTube or on a podcast of the patient or the doctor talking about a procedure or an outcome. You could use long form YouTube videos on YouTube. Take that into that same video, turn it into 6 to 8 short clips, 15 to 60 seconds a piece. Maybe you grab some pull quotes of what the patient or the doctor said, turn that into a static piece with maybe just a graphic or a carousel on Facebook or LinkedIn. Then you take the video, run it through a transcription software, which that's called AI these days, folks. Run it through transcription and then take it and turn it into a long form article so that you give a little love to the search engines. And then you take some key pieces of that video, turn it into a newsletter and send it out to your patients. This is Bob and he had whatever procedure done, and learn more about Bob and this procedure, and here, meet us at the live Q&A with the doctor to talk about, I don't know, balloon sinuplasty. So then we got measurements and KPIs, always the favorite, but I think the doctors really do appreciate the measurements and the KPIs so that we can keep doing some of the stuff we're doing. Harnessing the power of social and healthcare also comes down to measuring certain elements. We want to track meaningful metrics based on platforms and content, not just the number of likes. I've had so many conversations with doctors over the years saying, I want more likes, I want more followers. It can be a powerful metric, but it's a vanity metric. So as an example, let's say your practice receives high engagement on a hearing aid tips post. This could indicate a patient's interest on that particular post topic or content type. Whereas, 10,000 people liking your page might just be 10,000 people liking your page, but they may not see it because if you're not getting engagement, you're not necessarily showing up in the algorithm. So the things that we really are measuring for, one is awareness, right? Do people know who your practice is? Do they know who your doctors are? Things of that nature. Awareness is actually pretty easy to get because you can put money behind it and get it. You can make sure that people are seeing your posts. You're showing up a certain number of times. Tells you the frequency, just like when you buy TV. So awareness is measured in impressions, reach, video views, you name it. The next kind of area of measurement is engagement. Shares, comments, how long they watched your videos, you name it there. Conversion. This one's tougher because it depends on if you convert through an EHR. Everybody's definition of conversion is slightly different. Can your patients directly convert and schedule an appointment through your website? If so, then you can truly track conversion. We also will find ourselves tracking appointment requests, form submissions, newsletter signups. You can do this on your website. You can also do these through social media. And then you can kind of measure trust to a certain degree, community growth, like how if your page is growing, sentiment analysis, you name it, a little bit deeper into that data. But, especially with AI, it will allow you to analyze so much these days to go and find out what people are talking about. All right, so let's get into AI with healthcare. So I feel like AI we've been talking about until we're blue in the face, but basically this is an example that was given to me for an ortho practice. But I think what I'm going to say here is that this could apply 1,000% to hearing aids, because AI and hearing aids and the new things that Apple are doing with the earbuds. I was on a cruise recently and I was talking to this woman and she had just gotten her hearing aids and she was using her phone to control them. And she was just so excited. And there was AI built into the app, however. So incorporating AI and wearables, which I'm going to say are hearing aids, can significantly personalize the patient experience, their engagement, and future trends are pointing to more and more of these integrated healthcare landscapes where sure, it's AI, sure, it's an app, but it's tied to a device. And AI can help the patient tailor content to their individual needs. It can also connect social media with health tracking for holistic engagement. And there's real opportunities in exploring wearables and apps in healthcare communication. I've got, I don't have them on right now, but I really was an early adopter and got a couple pairs of the new Meta glasses. And so basically I've got my sunglasses and my pair of reading glasses that are tied to an AI app on my phone, which then can say, they can give me directions when I'm lost. They will read out the directions to me. They will be my eyes. They are being touted for people with low vision to tell me what's in my refrigerator, what am I looking at for people, that really could help people that suffer from blindness or sight issues to be able to have the glasses that they're wearing telling them what they're going for. They're able to take videos, they can take photos. It's just the very first piece to this future of healthcare media and tech, and having your sunglasses on and having an opportunity to talk to my Alexa or my Google app or whatever it is and get the information I need in real time. So AI has some opportunities and risks. Well, I like to say this because you can't replace all the things you're doing with AI. It's not a replacement, it's a time saver. So we treat it as like a first draft tool, but we have to verify everything behind it because we never know if it's lying or not. But the opportunity for AI as it relates to social is to use it to help you with content ideation, transcription, like I mentioned, headlines, like for your social post. And you can even use AI to help you generate images. The risk is that it oftentimes gives you inaccurate information and there's copyright issues. So you got to pay attention to that. But the guidance is like, as a marketer, put it together, and then just make sure you've got a clinician actually reviewing, and never, ever, ever put your patient data into one of those AI tools because it becomes available to everybody. So I'm almost done here. I'm going to wrap it up soon, but what can we use AI for? Well, you can use it to write blogs. You can create images that you might share on social media. We're doing a big campaign right now, like potentially with Santa. We're trying to like come up with the right ideas for Santa getting this procedure done for Christmas. And we're using AI to generate concepts, and then we'll take it to our designers to further develop it. But it's great for ideation. You can use it to help you write email campaigns and market research and do some strategic planning. You can do direct-to-video scripts and descriptions for YouTube, translations. You want to translate to another language, AI will help you with that. It'll also help you with identifying your KPIs, maybe even doing a SWOT by subspecialty, sales and referrals, transcriptions, HR, you name it. I use AI all the time to look at data, like website data or social data or things like that, to help me identify things that I'm not seeing, which is great because then it opens my eyes to it and then I go down a new rabbit hole. So kind of to the point, what can you use AI for? This is just an example of a prompt for Midjourney. We said, give me a photo of a doctor being taken over by AI, pixel style. Excuse me. And this is months ago, and it's come a million miles since then. I mean, we're seeing now AI even being in video form, and you really can't even tell the difference between the AI and the videos, whether it's an actor or AI. So some prompt examples, right? So let me give you an example. This would be a prompt, right? Generate a 45-second video script explaining tinnitus causes for adults. Grade level 6, cite the sources. Then it'll prompt it for you, and you'll give it to a clinician before you're going to post it. The key is you got to be explicit. You got to tell your AI the audience, the tone you want them to use, the format you want them to give it to you in, and then you should ask for references, and then you should check the references. Provide constraints. No medical claims, like tell it, don't give me any medical claims. Speak to me like I'm in 6th grade, cite my sources. Use chain of thought prompts, and then iterate and refine, like use it as your assistant, and always finalize with making sure that the stuff's legit and a clinician takes a chance to review it. So I'm gonna wrap up with this. So we've got social regulations and safety trends. Stuff to really be paying attention to. You got to stay ahead of the trends by testing little pilots and then documenting your process. Track legal and platform updates all the time. Involve your compliance team when posting content aimed at or likely to reach minors. So what we're seeing right now from a trend standpoint is that we're starting to see more and more of these heightened youth protections, age verifications, content warnings, you name it. We've got algorithm transparency and platform accountability that is increasing. You know, we hear it all the time in the news, like, we don't know why people are addicted to social media. Well, the social media companies are not telling you how the algorithms are working. That is slowly starting to shift. And then global privacy rules are accelerating compliance requirements. I mentioned it before. In the US, our privacy rules, they're starting to get more stringent. But in Europe or in California, they are legit as stringent as they become. They could probably find a way to be more stringent. It's incumbent upon you or your vendor to know what these new regulations are so that you're staying within compliance. And then we definitely want to stay authentic. We want unpolished content, you know, real stories, real staff moments, real doctors. We get doctors all the time that'll say, what should I wear to my video? We say, doctor, wear what you wear with the doctors every day. Because if you wear scrubs and they're all inside out and wrinkly, and that's how you see patients every day, don't show up in your video in a 3-piece suit because people aren't going to know that you're being authentic. Micro communities and peer networks will drive engagement. We saw that with our dumpster fire, you know, little micro communities and the comments and things that was driving engagement through the roof. And had we not had those listening tools, we wouldn't even have known that people were talking about us. Interactive formats like polls and quizzes and like live events, those are great. And those are social trends that you should be jumping on board with, because again, social is so much like old TV was, where you would get something and you would watch what you liked and you flip through the channels. That's what the audience is doing right now. So you want to be authentic. You want to answer the questions that they're asking and make it a little bit entertaining for them, even if entertaining is like a loose term when it comes to healthcare. And then, what's trending? It's multimedia content, audio, video, visuals, text. You got to try everything to see what works for you, track your ROI, and then rinse and repeat. So we'll wrap it up here. The challenges and pitfalls as it relates to social media. Well, I shared with you, as much as it can be a positive and you might go viral, misinformation can go viral too. And misinformation spreads quickly. As healthcare providers, this is your biggest opportunity. You can see what people are saying. You can put your doctors out there answering the right questions or dispelling whatever the myths are. But you should know that just as quick as something good can spread, something bad can spread too. So misinformation spreads very quickly. Another challenge is over-reliance on a single platform is very risky. I said to you, all right, you definitely want to be on Facebook, probably want to be on Instagram, maybe do YouTube as well. And I say that to say Facebook and Instagram are Meta, YouTube is Google. Different platforms across the board. So if one goes down, maybe the other doesn't. When we had that recent crash where Amazon had a problem with their database and basically took out the internet, Facebook and Meta suffered in a big way. I don't think YouTube did. And so, you don't want to put all your eggs in a basket because they can make changes, things like that. Another challenge is using AI without any kind of oversight. That's just errors, errors, errors. You see it all the time. If you think you can just hire somebody, have them use AI and then not have someone come behind them, you're just opening yourself up for compliance issues or the spreading of misinformation or just not putting your best foot forward. Privacy violations, definitely something to pay attention to because, you don't mean to get PHI in there, but just make sure we're not putting PHI out there. Make sure if we do a quick video with the doctor and the screen's in the background that you really can't see anything, or use a blurring tool to make sure there's no PHI. And then really I find the biggest challenge and the pitfall is like social media is not easy. And sometimes you can spend hours and hours on a single post and nobody cares about it. And you don't get any traction. And then you kind of are like, I just don't know if I'm going to do this again. It took me, I only have so many hours in the day. I only have so much energy and I'm sick of making little TikTok videos or YouTube videos. Resource constraints and burnout are for real. And that's one of the bigger issues with social media. I said it before. It's not so much about the volume. It's about the frequency and the quality of what you're putting out there. So if you can only post once a week or once a month, that's better than being all over the place. And that will be one of those things you come up with the schedule, work the schedule, use the content pillars to get you there to help you frame the conversation, frame the schedule that you're going to put out there. That's how you'll prevent burnout and go from there.
And that was Jennifer Thompson diving deep into the good, the bad, and the ugly of social media in healthcare today. I hope you found that helpful. Again, for me, one of the biggest takeaways there is the concept of the social search. We tend to think of Google as the place for answers and kind of Instagram for entertainment. But as Jen noted, patients really are using TikTok and Instagram for specific conditions and research. And, there's a whole host of things, pros and cons to that. But that's for another episode, let's say. So if you don't have a social listening tool in place after hearing that opening story, that should probably be the first thing that you do tomorrow. That'd be my recommendation. And if you want to see anything regarding this talk, or if you would like to learn more about some of what she discussed, head over to insightmg.com and you can look for show notes for this episode. And as always, if you liked what you heard or what you saw, please subscribe, leave us a review. It really helps us reach more practice administrators and docs just like you. And with that, I'm Corey. This has been the Dr. Marketing Tips Show, and we'll catch you in the next one.
If you want more like this, hit like and subscribe so you'll always be alerted to new episodes when they come out. And if you want information about us, visit us over at insightmg.com. That's insightmg.com. We'll see you on the next episode.